I've met people who hustle for years, wear themselves thin, chase every shiny object, yet their bank account looks the same year after year. And then there are those quiet, steady individuals. They seem ordinary, but behind the scenes, they understand something most don't. They've discovered the secret laws that quietly multiply their wealth, their influence, their peace of mind day after day. But here's the tragedy. Most people are conditioned to chase the obvious. Work harder, run faster, stay busy. But they neglect the subtle. And in life, the subtle is where the fortune hides. So today, I won't tell you how to chase money. I'll tell you how to attract it. By aligning yourself with the very laws that make the wealthy richer every single day. You know, one of the biggest illusions people live under is that wealth somehow just arrives, that success is the result of luck, timing, or being in the right place at the right time. But I'll tell you the truth, wealth never grows by accident. It grows by design. It grows because someone, somewhere, made the conscious decision to plant the seeds of their future every single day. That's the law of intentional growth. Nothing flourishes by neglect, not a garden, not your mind, not your bank account. When I started out, I didn't come from wealth. I didn't have the fancy education, and I certainly didn't have the connections. But I learned early that I could grow into the person capable of building wealth if I simply made growth intentional. That meant reading the books that stretched my thinking, listening to those who had walked the path before me, building the habits that compounded my ability to produce results. Wealth isn't about sudden windfalls. It's about accumulating tiny advantages every day. You see, millionaires understand this. They read with purpose. They learn with direction. They surround themselves with conversations that challenge them to elevate their thinking. Every book they open, every relationship they cultivate, every discipline they sharpens, all part of an intentional strategy to grow their earning capacity, their wisdom, and their influence. Growth doesn't happen while you're asleep at the wheel. It happens when you consciously, deliberately engage with life as a student. And intentional growth isn't limited to finances. Your communication skills, your ability to solve problems, your capacity to stay calm under pressure, all these things directly influence your wealth. I remember when I was struggling, a mentor told me, if you want more, you must become more. That stayed with me because the marketplace pays you not for what you want, but for the value you bring. And value comes from who you've intentionally become. So every day, the wealthy plant seeds. They invest in themselves before they invest in the stock market. They develop their thinking before they chase opportunities. They understand that before success shows up outside, it must be built inside. You don't stumble into prosperity, you prepare for it. The law of intentional growth is simple. Who you are becoming is shaping the wealth you will attract. Plant the right seeds, and the harvest will take care of itself. I've often said, it's not what you earn that makes you rich, it's what you keep. And the sooner you understand that, the sooner you put yourself on the right side of wealth. You see, people have this idea that if they could just earn more, all their financial problems would disappear. But the truth is, income without discipline is like trying to fill a leaking bucket. No matter how much water you pour in, it drains away faster than you can earn it. That's the reality most people live with. But millionaires, they live differently. They live by the law of financial discipline. Discipline is what separates financial success from financial chaos. And it starts small, almost invisible. It starts with tracking every dollar, respecting every expense, and understanding that money is a tool, not a toy. I remember when I first got serious about building wealth. I didn't have much, but I treated every dollar like it mattered because it did. It wasn't the amount that determined my future. It was the habit of discipline that would multiply whatever I had. You see, millionaires master restraint. They don't let emotions drive their spending. They don't buy status symbols to impress people they don't even like. They let profit, not desire, guide their lifestyle. And that's the key difference. Most people upgrade their lifestyle with every pay raise, leaving them in the same position year after year. But the wealthy, they upgrade their savings, their investments, their opportunities, and their lifestyle comes after. as a reward for results, not as a response to impulse. When I started tracking every expense, it was eye-opening. I saw how little leaks, mindless spending, unnecessary comforts, emotional purchases were draining my potential. That's when I made the decision. Every dollar I earn will have a job. It will either work for me today or be invested to work for me tomorrow. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is ignored. The discipline to save when it's easier to spend, to invest when it's tempting to splurge, to track your finances when it feels tedious, this is what builds wealth. Because small leaks sink big ships, but small disciplines build empires. So remember, the marketplace doesn't reward flashy spending. It rewards those who master restraint, those who control their money before it controls them. Profit isn't an accident. It's a product of discipline. And discipline is the foundation of lasting wealth. I've always believed if you can't master your emotions will master your bank account. It's as simple as that. You see, money doesn't just disappear, it moves, it flows. And most often it flows away from those who can't control themselves. That's why emotional mastery isn't just some philosophical luxury, it's a financial necessity. Most people don't realize how often their spending is driven by feelings rather than logic. Think about it. How many times have people spent money out of frustration? They've had a tough day, and suddenly buying something they don't need feels like relief. Or they spend out of fear, hoarding, or rushing into decisions, thinking they'll miss out. And then there's excitement, the biggest trickster of them all. Excitement can convince you to gamble instead of invest, to splurge instead of save, to leap without looking. And when emotions run the show, financial ruin follows quietly, step by step. But those who build real wealth, they operate differently. They feel the same emotions, of course they do. We're all human. But they've trained themselves to respond, not react. They pause. They think. They let logic guide their decisions, not the temporary rush of feelings. That's why they make fewer mistakes. That's why their wealth grows while others wonder where their money went. I remember early in my journey, I was tempted just like anyone else. I'd see friends spending on vacations they couldn't afford, buying cars they didn't need, showing off for people who weren't even paying attention. But I made a decision I wouldn't let my emotions dictate my financial future. When I felt frustration, I worked harder. When I felt fear, I learned more. When I felt excitement, I slowed down and assessed the facts. Millionaires don't act because they feel like it. They act when the numbers make sense, when the opportunity is real, when the risk is calculated, and the reward aligns with their goals. They know wealth isn't built on feelings, it's built on discipline, strategy, and patience. The real test isn't when times are easy. It's when pressure builds, emotions run high, and you're tempted to make a quick move. That's when the wealthy pause, breathe, and let logic speak louder than emotion. Master that moment and you've mastered the greatest financial advantage of all, control over yourself. And when you control yourself, your money follows suit. Vague desires create vague results. I've seen it over and over again. Someone says, I want to be wealthy, but ask them how much, by when, doing what? And suddenly the room goes quiet. You see, if your goal is foggy, your actions are foggy. And foggy actions don't build empires. They barely get you through the day. Millionaires think differently. They have precise targets. Not, I want to earn more, but I will generate $100,000 in income this year through these specific avenues. Not, I want to invest, but I'll own X number of assets that produce Y amount of cash flow by this date. Their vision isn't a wish, it's a measurable, trackable blueprint. When I first started, I was no different than most. I had dreams, sure, but they were loose, scattered, wrapped in emotion rather than structure. I hoped to be wealthy, but my calendar, my habits, my conversations, they weren't aligned with that outcome. It wasn't until I sat down, got brutally honest with myself, and defined clear, specific, written financial targets that everything began to change. I knew how much I wanted to save, how much I wanted to invest, by when and with what strategies. Suddenly, Every decision became easier because I could ask a simple question. Does this move me toward or away from my clear target? Most people never experience that level of alignment because they skip this step. They drift, they react, they chase distractions dressed as opportunities. But millionaires, they don't drift, they steer. And they steer with precision, with numbers, with timelines etched into their routines. Clarity of goals fuels consistent action. Consistent action compounds into momentum. And momentum, my friends, is how ordinary people achieve extraordinary wealth. If your financial future feels uncertain, start with clarity. Define it. Measure it. Then pursue it relentlessly. Because wealth doesn't happen accidentally. It happens intentionally, with crystal clear purpose leading the way. When I look back at the turning points in my life, the defining moments that separated my past from my future, they all share one thing in common: knowledge. Not luck, not chance, knowledge. The wealthy, those who continue to build and multiply their fortune, understand this simple, often overlooked law, the law of continuous learning. You see, wealth isn't just numbers on paper or zeros in the bank account. Wealth is first constructed in the mind. The reason most people stay stuck, financially speaking, is because they stop growing intellectually. School ends, formal education wraps up, and for most, so does learning. But the wealthy, they flip the script. They understand that real education begins after school when the stakes are higher, the choice is heavier, and the opportunities vast but hidden beneath the surface. And those opportunities, they reveal themselves to the curious mind, to the person constantly sharpening their thinking, asking better questions, reading deeper books, seeking out mentors with battle scars and wisdom. I made a decision early in my journey that changed everything. I would never allow a week to pass without feeding my mind something new. It didn't matter if it was a book, a seminar, a conversation with someone smarter than me. I committed to constant, deliberate learning. I learned to study people who already had what I wanted, their habits, their thinking patterns, their failures. I devoured biographies. I dissected financial principles. I took notes like my future depended on it, because it did. Here's the hard truth. Ignorance is expensive. Every financial mistake, every missed opportunity, every bad deal, they all stem from what you don't know. But the opposite is equally true. Knowledge protects you. It shields you from traps, reveals shortcuts, uncovers possibilities others can't even see because they're looking with an untrained eye. The wealthy read, not to entertain themselves, but to prepare themselves. They ask questions, not to sound intelligent, but to remove blind spots. They seek mentors, not for admiration, but for acceleration. Because every time they learn, they widen the gap between themselves and the masses. And let me tell you, knowledge compounds faster than money. What you understand today shapes the decisions you make tomorrow, and those decisions determine your wealth. So never stop learning. The world changes, technology evolves, markets shift, new threats and new chances arise every day. Those standing still intellectually, they fall behind. But those committed to continuous learning, they rise, they adapt, they multiply wealth where others only lose it. Knowledge isn't optional. It's your first, greatest investment. One of the simplest but most overlooked truths about wealth is this: money flows towards solutions. The world doesn't pay for complaints. It doesn't reward frustration. It rewards problem solvers. That's the law of problem solving. And it separates those who wait for wealth from those who create it. Every dollar in circulation is attached to a problem someone was willing to solve, and the wealthiest among us, they've trained themselves to spot problems where others only see obstacles, and more importantly, they act. It's easy to sit around and criticize the world, to point fingers at what's broken, inefficient, or unfair. But wealthy thinkers approach life differently. They ask, quote, where is the frustration? Where is the inefficiency? Where is the unmet need, and how can I be the answer? Every major fortune has been built on that question. Whether it's a new product, a better system, an improved experience, or a completely different way of doing business solutions create wealth. I remember when I first understood this principle, it was like a switch flipped in my thinking. I stopped complaining about the price of things, the lack of opportunities, or the obstacles in front of me. I started paying attention. I started noticing where people struggled, where businesses underperformed, where systems broke down. And I realized behind every frustration is a doorway to wealth if you have the mindset to walk through it. Think about the greatest businesses of our time. They didn't invent the desire for convenience, speed, or better service. They solved the problem. That's why the market rewarded them, because wealth is nothing more than a byproduct of value creation. Solve the right problem, and wealth follows naturally. But here's where most people get stuck. They're waiting for the problems to be easy or the timing to be perfect. Let me tell you, problems rarely come with perfect timing, and they almost never feel easy. But those who lean into them, who develop the discipline to think, to create, to innovate under pressure, they build wealth where others only build excuses. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, where you live, or what your current resources are. The ability to solve problems meaningfully, creatively, and consistently is the most reliable pathway to increasing income, building wealth, and multiplying your influence. So the next time you encounter difficulty, ask yourself the Millionaires question. Is this frustration my next fortune? The answer, more often than not, is yes. We often overestimate what we can accomplish in a day and underestimate what we can build over time. That's the quiet power behind compounding actions. See, wealth doesn't usually arrive with fanfare. It doesn't knock on your door dressed in gold. It sneaks in, disguised as small, often invisible daily choices most people ignore because they seem insignificant in the moment. But millionaires, they've mastered the art of stacking those small actions like bricks, knowing that over time those bricks become castles. I learned early in life that grand gestures rarely lead to lasting change. It's easy to get caught up in bursts of motivation, where for a few days you feel unstoppable, you hit the gym, you read the book, you skip the latte. But the wealthy, they don't chase motivation. They create rituals. Because motivation fades, but discipline compounds. A small, consistent action done daily doesn't just add, it multiplies. Think about your health. You don't get strong from one workout, you get strong from daily discipline. Wealth is no different. A few dollars saved daily, a few minutes invested in learning, one tough decision made with integrity. They seem small, but they stack. Over weeks, months, and years, those actions compound into unshakable confidence, financial independence, and a mindset most people only dream about. I remember when I first committed to daily reading. Just 20 minutes a day, rain or shine, tired or energized, it didn't matter. At first it felt trivial, but a year later, my thinking had changed, my conversations had changed, my opportunities had changed. Not because of a single breakthrough moment, but because of hundreds of small, quiet victories that compounded while others waited for inspiration. Millionaires understand that empires aren't built in a weekend. They're constructed one disciplined day at a time. They track their progress, celebrate consistency, and trust the process even when the results are invisible at first. So, I'll tell you, don't dismiss small actions because they lack immediate rewards. Plant seeds every day. Strengthen your habits. Stack those tiny bricks of discipline, focus, and learning. Because while most people chase the big flashy moment, the wealthy quietly compound their way to unstoppable success. Reputation is one of those invisible currencies that separates the wealthy from the merely busy. You see, money can come and go. Assets rise and fall. But your name, your word, that follows you everywhere. Millionaires understand this better than anyone. They know that beyond the balance sheet, beyond the numbers, your reputation is often the deciding factor between doors opening or doors slamming shut. I've sat in rooms where deals worth millions were decided not by resumes, not by fancy presentations, but by one simple question whispered quietly, can we trust them? And you know what? The wealthiest people I've met never underestimated that question. They treat their name like an asset, one that compounds with every interaction, every promise kept, every handshake honored. Now, building reputation capital isn't flashy work. It's not something you post about on social media. It happens in the quiet moments when you deliver more than expected, when you stay honest, even when it's inconvenient, when you admit mistakes and correct them without excuses. Those small moments, they stack. They compound. And over time, they create a reputation so solid, opportunities start finding you. I remember a mentor once telling me, your reputation walks into the room before you do. And I learned quickly, in the world of wealth, perception shapes reality. People invest in people they trust. They partner with those who consistently show up with integrity. They avoid those who chase shortcuts or break promises for temporary gain. Millionaires play the long game with their reputation because they know trust accelerates wealth faster than almost anything else. And here's the beauty of reputation capital. It multiplies. One good partnership leads to another. One act of reliability echoes into future deals. But the same is true in reverse. One broken promise, one act of carelessness can cost you years of hard-earned trust. So, protect your name, guard your word, build your reputation like you would build a financial fortune patiently, consistently, with unwavering integrity. Because while money fuels wealth, trust sustains it. And in the end, those with reputation capital find that doors open wider, partnerships grow stronger, and wealth becomes not just possible, but inevitable. One of the earliest lessons I learned on the road to building wealth was this. No matter how secure you think your primary income is, true wealth never depends on a single stream. You see, one income stream might cover your bills. It might help you survive. But survival is not the same as prosperity, and certainly not the same as freedom. Millionaires understand this distinction well, and they live by what I call the principle of the second stream, and often the third, fourth, or fifth. Now, the average person relies on one paycheck, one employer, one set of circumstances. And when that stream dries up, panic sets in. But those who build wealth know that security comes from creating layers of income side businesses, passive investments, dividend income, royalties, rental properties, digital venture streams that flow even when you're sleeping, even when the economy shakes, even when your primary work slows down. I remember when I got serious about this. My main work was solid, but I knew better than to get comfortable. So I began investing small amounts into opportunities that could multiply quietly in the background. At first, the returns were modest, a few dollars here, some dividends there. But wealth doesn't show up overnight. It shows up through steady streams, widening over time. That's the magic of multiple incomes. One may drip, another may flow, but together they create a river of possibility. And when one stream faces drought, a job loss, market downturn, unexpected expenses, the others sustain you. That's not luck. That's intentional design. Some ask, where do I start? Start small. Could be a freelance skill you monetize after hours. Could be an online course you create from your expertise. Could be investing in an asset that quietly compounds. The key isn't the size. It's the structure, building streams that function independently of each other. Millionaires don't wait for economic storms to realize the importance of diversification. They build streams in calm seasons so they're unshaken in turbulent ones. It's not just about defense, it's about creating overflow, surplus, and options. So remember this, one income pays the bills, but the second stream and everyone after that builds the life of freedom, security, and opportunity that true wealth offers. Never depend on one source alone. Design your financial life so your wealth works while you rest, because that's how millionaires grow richer every day. One of the most profound lessons I ever embraced is that wealth, real wealth, doesn't arrive with impulse. It arrives with patience. The world around us is designed for instant gratification. One click buys the gadget, one swipe drains the account, one careless moment trades the future for fleeting pleasure. But those who rise to the level of financial independence, those who become wealthier with each passing day, have mastered a quiet but powerful principle, the law of delayed gratification. Now, when I was young, I wanted nice things, fast. And occasionally I fell into the same trap many do. I'd spend what I hadn't yet earned, justify expenses I couldn't afford, all in the name of comfort today. But here's the thing, comfort bought too soon often turns into discomfort down the line. It took me years and a few humbling lessons to understand that small sacrifices today build the foundation for extraordinary freedom tomorrow. Millionaires live by this. They resist the shiny temptation of every new toy, every unnecessary purchase, not because they're misers, but because they see a bigger picture. They understand that money invested multiplies, but money spent emotionally evaporates. So they wait. They let their resources work for them. They allow time and discipline to transform small choices into compounded wealth. It shows up in their spending. They don't chase status with cars or clothes. They build assets. It shows up in their investments. They hold steady, even when markets tempt fear or greed. It shows up in their businesses. They reinvest profits rather than celebrating prematurely. They know every dollar held back, wisely redirected, is a seed planted in fertile ground. I remember a mentor once telling me, "It's not about what you can buy today, it's about who you can become if you wait." That stuck with me. Because discipline is a muscle, and every time you choose patience over impulse, that muscle strengthens. Eventually, the world offers you what most never touch: freedom of time, freedom of choices, freedom to live life by design, not desperation. And here's the truth most overlooked. Delayed gratification isn't denial, it's alignment. It aligns your actions with your vision. It trades momentary comfort for lasting abundance. So if you want to know how millionaires grow richer every day, look beyond their bank accounts. Look at their ability to wait, to resist, to plant seeds with quiet confidence, knowing the harvest always belongs to the patient. It's a curious thing about wealth. The world often teaches us to chase more, yet overlooks the foundation that sustains and multiplies what we have: gratitude. You see, I've met people with overflowing bank accounts who live like paupers, not for lack of money, but for lack of appreciation. And I've met others early in their journey with modest means, yet they radiate a richness of spirit that attracts opportunity, growth, and eventually great success. That difference is rooted in the law of gratitude-based growth. When I started out, I was broke, not just financially, but mentally. I wanted more, but I resented my circumstances. It wasn't until I learned to be thankful for where I was, every struggle, every small win, every lesson disguised as failure, that things began to shift. Gratitude has a way of unlocking doors the frustrated mind never sees. Wealthy individuals understand this. They appreciate every dollar earned, not just because of its spending power, but because of what it represents: their discipline, their problem solving, their contribution to the world. They express thanks for the mentors who guide them, the mistakes that refine them, and even the setbacks that strengthen them. They know success without gratitude is empty and temporary. And here's the magic: gratitude sharpens your perspective. When you appreciate what you have, you see more clearly what to do with it. You become a better steward of your resources, a wiser decision maker, a more attractive partner in business and life. People want to work with, invest in, and support those who radiate gratitude because it reflects maturity, humility, and vision. I've learned that gratitude doesn't mean settling, it means building from a solid foundation. The wealthiest minds grow, not because they constantly crave more, but because they deeply value what they've already built. That energy, that mindset, fuels motivation. It reminds them that every step forward is a gift, and every setback is a disguised opportunity. You cannot resent your way to wealth. You cannot curse your circumstances and expect them to improve. But when you appreciate the process, the slow growth, the hard lessons, the quiet progress, success begins to find you. Gratitude magnetizes growth because it keeps your heart open, your mind clear, and your actions aligned. So remember, true wealth isn't measured only by dollars, it's measured by how grateful you are for the journey that creates them.